Okay, welcome to Chapter 2, Section 3, Conditional Statements. Conditional statements are statements that can be written in an if-then form. For example, if I do not eat breakfast, then I will be hungry by lunch. If-then form. Just as with the last lesson, we have symbols. If P, then Q. That's how this is read. If I do not eat breakfast, then I will be hungry by lunch. The hypothesis is what follows usually the word if. The conclusion usually follows the word then. If I don't eat breakfast, then I will be hungry. Now, the statements can be said front to back or back to front. For example, if I skip breakfast, then I will be hungry. I will be hungry if I skip breakfast. Something I want you to notice on these two statements. I have the word if in both statements, but I do not have the word then. If the conditional is at the end, we have if there, but if the conclusion is in front, we don't start a sentence with then. So just be cognizant of that. You may or may not have the words if or then. Elaborating on that, let's look at this example. Points will be deducted from any paper finished late. Well, I don't see the word if or then. Still, even without seeing those words, just using reading comprehension, I can tell one is the conclusion and one is the hypothesis. So, conclusion, what's going to happen? Points will be deducted. What's going to cause that? What's going to bring that about? If a paper is finished late. So, points will be deducted is my conclusion. Paper being finished late, that's the hypothesis. Let's take a look at this conditional statement. If Joe finishes his work, then he will sleep. So, the hypothesis here is that Joe finishes his work. The conclusion is that Joe will sleep. So, let's say that the hypothesis is P and the conclusion is Q. Therefore, we have if P, then Q. Well, let's make a little truth value chart. Remember truth values from last section? We can use those for the hypothesis, conclusion, and conditional as well. So let's say that Joe actually finishes his work, and then afterwards, he does sleep. These both get truth values. If P then Q, it is of course true. Now, if Joe finishes his work, and then he decides not to sleep, so this is false, truth value false. Well, that makes this conditional false. He did finish his work, but he did not sleep. It's false. Now, take a look at what happens here. This is a little bit interesting. If Joe does not finish his work, let's say if he doesn't finish his work, but then he does go to sleep, or if he doesn't finish his work, and then he does not go to sleep. Either way, what are we going to assign for the truth value? We are going to assign them both as true. And here's why. I did not have in my statement, I didn't have anything that said if Joe does not finish his work, then he will do this, then he will not do that. So, if he does not finish his work, then whatever he does, I accept it as true. Because he could do either one if he does not finish his work. I did not say which one was which. Another thing I want you to notice, this is the only spot where the if P then Q statement is false. So the only way this can be marked as false is if the hypothesis is true, but then the conclusion is incorrect. Take a minute, look that over so you understand it. Okay, now we're going to take a look at related conditionals. These are statements that are based on the conditional statement. So we're going to start out with the conditional statement here. If P, then Q. So, for example, if the measure of angle A is 35, then angle A is acute, which we know is true. The first one we're going to talk about is the converse. The converse is basically where we take the conditional, the if, then, and just reverse them. We just flip-flop them. If Q, then P. So if angle A is an acute angle, then the measure of angle A is 35. That's converse when you just flip it around. Next we have the inverse. Remember the symbol? If not P, then not Q. So if the measure of angle A is not 35, then angle A is not an acute angle. See how these are related? Last one, contra positive. This is where we take the converse and we use these guys. So, if not Q, then not P. Take a look at the similarities here. If angle A is not an acute angle, then the measure of angle A is not 35. Take a minute, look that over. And that is it for Chapter 2, Section 3, Conditional Statements. See you in class.